That's right. Today, I'm going to answer the question as to what is the structure of reality. This is a very profound question and very important to our enlightenment self inquiry work. And why is that? Well, I talk about a lot of the reasons why you're not yet enlightened. In the previous episodes, I've talked a lot about the fact that you still have that false sense of self, that illusion inside of your head of being a self. And that's one of the common misconceptions when it comes to enlightenment is that you are a false self. However, the question is, what is physically going on with your current experience around you? This very current experience that you're having right now. Look around the room, all these sense perceptions happening. You're confused as to what's going on here. And I'm going to actually start to explain to you what the truth is. And this will really help you in your enlightenment journey and self inquiry practices. So here we go. The misconception about what reality is most of people, especially in Western society, adopted the belief system of the materialist paradigm. And what does that mean? Commonly, when we talk about the materialist paradigm, the beliefs that go along with the materialist paradigm are the fact that there is physical matter, such as atoms, that are actually outside of your perception that you don't have any access to. And then your perception filters that experience of the raw data, material atoms that filters through your perception and creates your experience of the external world, this external world that you cannot access if it weren't for your perceptions. And that this actual external world is made out of hard materialistic matter, like actual physical matter that you cannot see because it's being filtered through your perceptions. That's not what we believe, and that's not what is actually the case when you experience the truth of no self for the first time. The actual experience, the real truth as to what's happening here is that there isn't any external matter outside of perception, but it's that there's only one thing. There's not a duality where it's like matter on the outside and then my perceptions, images popping up in the head, in the inside. That's a duality. That doesn't exist. There's only one thing happening. And what that one thing is there's just consciousness. Consciousness is the building block of everything. There's not matter over here and then perceptions over here. Everything's made out of consciousness. Consciousness is literally the physical material that things are made out of. So think if you were to like look at a chair or a table and think that like the most fundamental building blocks of those objects are atoms, in reality, it's actually made out of matter. The most physical, fundamental building block to reality is consciousness. And there is one thing, almost like everything is a holographic nature, kind of like a hallucination. And you can come to recognize that through spiritual enlightenment practices, but all of this stuff is actually consciousness. And there's actually a famous problem in philosophy that has not yet been solved through the materialist paradigm. And everyone's saying like, when will this question be solved? When will this question be solved? And the problem is why normal like Western society cannot figure out the answer to this problem is because they are operating under the materialist paradigm, which is the exact opposite as to what we're going for. If they were to use a different paradigm to this question I'm about to tell you, such as the idealism paradigm, that's a kind of paradigm that we can find to be true using our direct experience or enlightenment work. If we were to use that paradigm, this question would not actually exist. Now, what is this question? You might have heard of the famous question called the mind-body problem in philosophy. Now, I'm not a big philosophy guy. I don't know who came up with this problem and whatnot. I just know what the problem basically is. And the problem is that how does physical matter, and when I say physical matter, I'm talking about the actual atoms in the brain. When we're talking about the brain, because everyone thinks that the brain is what produces consciousness and everything, how do physical atoms, this dumb, dead matter, just building blocks of atoms that create the brain, how does that brain made out of physical matter actually give rise to what we call in philosophy qualia? Qualia would be colors and sounds and thoughts, things like that. Because notice that when we're talking about qualia, such as the color orange, that color is not made up out of atoms. We all know this. Sounds, the actual sounds, they're not made up out of atoms. No one knows using in Western society, all these materialists and scientists, no one can figure out that answer to the question as to how colors and noises and thoughts, how the brain can give rise to these things. So I'll show you exactly where everyone trips up with this question, all these materialists. So here is the problem with materialism, and I'm about to explain to you the materialist paradigm as to how sensations arise in the mind. So look at something in your room. Maybe it's like I'm looking at a chair right now. So, this is what science tells me, that light from that chair is hitting my eyes. It's traveling into my pupil, through my eyes, down the optic nerve into the visual cortex. And at that specific point, an image in the mind is created of a chair. That is what the materialist paradigm states. Now, here's the problem with the mind-body problem, is when you look at that chair and the light goes into your eyes, the optic nerve, there's electricity happening in the brain, and then there's no answer as to how this electricity just miraculously creates an image of the mind. At what point does it actually create an image of the mind? How does the visual cortex, something physical material lighting up with electricity, how does that actually create an image that can't be made out of atoms? How does that image become created in the mind? That is the biggest question in philosophy. And if you are a materialistic person, you're like-minded very to all the materialistic people, you might have this idea that your body and brain is basically hardware, and all of the qualia, such as thoughts and colors and emotions and sounds, all like that, that's kind of like software. So if you can imagine a computer, it has all those like components where if you were to open up a computer, you would be able to see like, oh, there's the memory, there's the CPU, there's the core, there's the battery, there's like the insides of the monitor, this and that, like that's all the hardware of the computer. But then the software, like the Windows or the iOS, if we're talking about Apple, that's not something that's going to be found just like opening up inside this computer if you were to like screw it apart. That's like the software component, is the software that's like running through the hardware. You might think as yourself as a human as that hardware, and the software is all that softer components, like I said, like the thoughts and emotions and colors and whatnot. So is that what you believe to be true? Did you adopt that idea as well? Because that idea is actually a mistake. And how we solve this age-old problem that materialism can't answer is we do this enlightenment work that I've been teaching. You can watch some of my previous videos. We do all this enlightenment work and we merge the duality between object and subject together. And when these two things fuse together, we realize that it is just one. So imagine that instead of just like hardware and software, you can imagine that it's only software. There is only software, meaning everything is mental, everything is consciousness, which means that the thoughts are made out of consciousness, but no different than the brain. The brain is made up of consciousness. The atoms in the room are made up of consciousness. The hands that you're looking at right now are made out of consciousness. The ceiling, the walls, the tables, the carpet, all of this is made out of consciousness, meaning that there's only software, not hardware. And that's the whole illusion that we are trying to break with all this enlightenment work that I'm explaining to you, is that inside of your mind, you have these dualities where I'm over here, the outside world is over here, everything's behind my perceptions. But once you do all this enlightenment work and the self disappears, there's no more software such as you inside of the shell of the body and then like hardware over there. You realize that there is only one thing. And considering that there's only one thing, that's when you finally piece everything together and say, oh, this is what enlightenment is. I am one thing. I am this whole sphere. I am this bubble of perception. I am not more me, a feeling inside the head, than I am a bird flying by. I am not more me inside of the mind or the thoughts than I am the wind blowing my hair. I am not more me inside of the head or in the thoughts or in the mind somewhere than I am just grass on the ground. I am this entire bubble of sensation. I am this whole entire bubble of experience right now. I've been selfish and saying and picking and choosing, oh, only this is me, but this, the shirt, is not me. Or only this body is me, but that body over there of that person walking down the street is not me. You have been picking and choosing which things are actually you and which things are not. And once we dissolve the ego, dissolve the self, that's when you're going to feel that merging into every single thing. You are this entire bubble of experience, every single thing in this room. You are not one thing over another thing. You are just the entirety of existence in this encapsulated sphere. When you look around this room, you see that you're in this like perceptual bubble field. You are that entire sphere. But it's not enough to believe me or just take my word for it. You need an actual experience of this yourself. And that's why I would suggest going to my YouTube channel, scrolling down the videos and looking at all the videos I made on how to become enlightened or what enlightenment is. When we do all these enlightenment exercises, we go into the mind with self-inquiry and we ask, where's me? Is this thing me? Is the image in my face me? Is the feeling in my head me? Is the thoughts saying me, is that me? What is me? And then we take apart, like I've talked about before, those three concepts of, thoughts, images, and feelings. We take them all apart, we spread them apart, and we realize that there are only thoughts, images, and feelings in the body existing, and there is no me located anywhere to be found. And that opens us up, allows us to experience enlightenment, and we experience this spaciousness. We are no longer inside of the body, but we almost like bleed out and we merge into this entire room, which can be a really scary experience, but one of the most profound experiences you will have for sure. And what is this entire bubble experience you're having if you're still confused about it? This entire bubble of experience that you're having is God. And it's not even you having it. It's more like the God is creating a you. This whole bubble you're realizing as you become enlightened is not anywhere or at any point in time or even anything in general. It's basically a dream, kind of like a bubble of nothingness floating in a void. It wasn't born from anything and it will never die because it's literally everything in this entire sphere that you see around you is infinite. It can imagine whatever it wants, whenever it wants, forever, for all of eternity. And it can even imagine that it is a human that has free will that was born from parents and went to school and lived on a place called Earth, in a place called the solar system, in a place called the galaxy, in a place called the universe. And that's when you have like the whoa realization of, oh my God, this is not happening anywhere, anywhen, to anyone. It exists on its own for eternity. And the fact that it's been existing forever and had no causation, that's not a bug, that's more of a feature. Because in this collective materialistic dream that we're creating right now, we always say, oh, well, there needs to be a cause for something. Something can't just kind of come out of nothing. There needs to be a cause for it. Yeah, that's the rules for inside of the dream, but not how the actual dream is created. Since the dream is infinite, it could come out of anything. It could come out of nothing. It could burst itself. There doesn't have to be a cause, a reason as to why this experience is here. And you can learn a lot of this stuff by not just taking my word for it, but actually do the practices, do the self-inquiry, do the meditation, possibly do the psychedelics if you're old enough, mature enough, doing it legally, you're mentally prepared for it, so on. Do the yoga, do the darkroom retreats, and keep chasing it, because I'll tell you this, if you put your mind to it, it will happen. You can't really just sit there with a closed mind and say to yourself over and over, well, like maybe there's a me inside the brain and maybe like I can never know that. So I'm not really going to take this stuff really seriously. I'm just going to kind of half-ass it. You could sit there forever You could die thinking that you're a human, you're not immortal, in your little skeptic chair, pointing fingers and saying, that's BS, that's BS, that's BS, without even looking into it any further. You could do that, or you could actually do this rewarding work. I'm not here to like prove to you through words that what I'm saying is correct. I'm actually asking you to go in and do it yourself, because taking my word for it does not help. It actually hurts to take my word for it. Go in there and get a direct experience. This is the opposite of what religion is telling you, or adopting a belief system. We're not doing that right now. We're doing this for ourselves, to see it, not only see it, but experience it with our own eyes. Experience the ego disappearing. Experience the awe and the gravity of the situation when you realize this experience isn't happening anywhere to anyone or at any point in time. Reality is not what it seems. And if you're watching this video, chances are that you've got little glimpses of this before. This is your sign. I'm asking you to go further than you have ever before. I bet you less than 0.1% of anyone who watches this video is actually going to go all the way. But if you'd like to go all the way, please join this tribe that I built. Subscribe, follow this community, and I will help you go all the way, so we can bring the collective consciousness of the entire universe to an elevated state that it's never been at before, in order to make the world a better place.